right. Thank you, Mona.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone.
All right. And next up, we'll have Ian McQuaid. Ian, if you'd like to share your screen. Ian, you may be on mute right now.
There we go. Do you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, excellent.
Floor is yours.
All right, just go up one screen here real quick. My name is Ian. I'm a technical consultant. I've been working with Dynamics GP for, as you can see, for 24, almost 25 years, doing installations, upgrades, migrations, integrations. And I'm here to talk about why you should look at keeping current and upgrading your Dynamics environments. So I only have a couple of slides, so I'm going to kind of go through why I think you should upgrade. Number one, new features. Dynamics GP is ever evolving like any other software, so there's still development happening. The Dynamics been around for a long time, so if you have been using it from version 2013 or 2015, 2016, you're still in those versions. One of the benefits of upgrading is that you get the new features that come out from Microsoft, and a lot of those features are or add-ons are actually things that customers have requested. So I don't know if everyone on the call knows that, but you can put forward to Microsoft suggestions and items that you would like to see in the product, and then they may actually add it in. One of the things that I hear frequently from customers and clients when I speak to them on the phone is how they'd like to use more of GP and leverage what they've got. So again, if you upgrade and you stay current, not only can you take an assessment of how you're using the product currently, you can take a look at those new available items, modules, components, and then see how they would fit into your organization to help with your business. Maybe change how you do business, make it more efficient and beneficial for everybody. I've listed here two URLs. One of them is what's new. Microsoft do release documentation online that shows what's new, and it's not just for a version. This has what's new for things that have come out in just service releases and patches and updates. It includes everything. So if you wanted to see what's new and see what you could gain by updating, that'd be a great place to start. I also list the requirements document. Let me move the mouse a little bit. The requirements document, I'm going to discuss this here as we go along as well, because with the change in software, there's a change in requirements, and sometimes a change outside of Dynamics GP can impact a reason why you should upgrade as well. And I'll talk about that in a second. Another good reason to look at updating and staying current. As you know, Dynamics GP is modular, and it has your core products, then there's add-on products to Microsoft, and then there's ISVs, which come from vendors such as Macoma or E1, Ethotech. There's literally hundreds of them that provide pieces of software that plug in to add functionality to your Dynamics GP environment. When as time moves on, those ISVs also need to upgrade as well, and that affects you as to how much they can support you if you're on an older version. Some ISVs have started leveraging newer technologies that you're probably all aware of, cloud services, where now you take E1, for example, with their PopDoc, they have functionality that resides in the cloud. Profix, another ISV, have services that reside in the cloud. In order to leverage some of those changes in those ISVs and the technology, we have to look at upgrading Dynamics GP as well. And again, with that, you start leveraging the newer software, the newer versions, and you take a look at the features that are now available in those products. it can greatly expand your use of Dynamics GP. And of course, then you can talk about return on investment and what you're gaining from what you've put in. So sort of leaning from that across to support, same sort of thing is, as software moves forward, we have to look at the ability to provide support for the software that's being deployed. And that's not only Dynamics GP, it's your third-party products. It's the infrastructure is underlying to that. Microsoft and ISVs and other software companies, they eventually do sort of say that they can't provide full support for an aged product. They hit end of life. Obviously, we at Turnkey, we don't take that stance. If you're on 2013, we support you as best as we can, but we eventually run into potential issues whereby we have reached the end of what we can do, and then we can't actually reach out to the proprietor of the software to gain further help or development or changes to make the product work for you. So that's important. Support is huge. Also with support, and this is an unfortunate incident that happened to me recently, or a client. If you run into an issue and you have to do a recovery, you have to be cognizant of the fact that getting the older software up and running can be more difficult if you have to acquire the software. So environment, I have a list there too. That URL points to, it says the Dynamics GP roadmap. That points to Dynamics GP and its development. Dynamics GP is continuing. It is in support. It is ongoing. There are new versions coming out. The current version is Dynamics GP 18.4. I'll save you the bother of having to remember the sub build. 18.5 is right on the horizon, and then that's quickly going to be followed by 19. So development is continuing, not only from Microsoft with the main product Dynamics GP, but as I mentioned, with also the ISVs. And I mentioned E1 PopDoc, that's actually a new product that came out not so long ago. So development continues. And with that, support sort of leans into environment compatibility. As software moves forward, whether it's all the way down at the operating system or to the front application the users are leveraging, we have to be cognizant of those changes and how they link and connect to each other for support. So, for example, if you've got SharePoint and CRM and Dynamics GP, and they are integrating in some way or connecting, or even to an outside service, and if you allow them all to sort of age, and you need to upgrade something, what happens is you have an issue where you have to upgrade everything at once, instead of being able to stair-step your upgrades. So, if we stay current, then it makes moving forward with all your other products much easier and smoother. One of the things I point out here is where things change. I have it highlighted in green. Sometimes things behind the scene, again, outside of Dynamics, but is leveraged by Dynamics GP, would be this example here is protocols and changes in security requirements, and authentication methods, multi-factor authentication, for example. I'm sure you've all come across that, where you have to install either an app or you get a text, and now instead of just logging in with a password, it's a 2, 3, 4-part step in order to make sure that your applications can leverage those changes in technology. We need to keep them upgraded, which is what I mentioned here, because I think it's October of this year, the whole TLS 1.2 kicks into high speed, and it's then mandatory. And older versions of GP don't support that protocol, so we have to take that into account if you're using email functionality or workflow functionality with Dynamics GP. Environment compatibility I list there as well, with new technologies, obviously Office 365, Power BI, Azure services such as Azure SQL or Synapse or data lakes. If we want to leverage those technologies in conjunction with your Dynamics GP, we need to make sure that we are at a level of GP that can support those. So my other slide, integrations, I mentioned that briefly as well. Dynamics GP is not necessarily just a standalone product. There are applications that sit outside of GP and function in their own right, but connect to Dynamics GP and share data or input data or retrieve data. I list a few examples there. Of course, we have Paramount, PanaTracker, SalesPad, Batchmaster. There's more. Some of those are on premise. Some of them are in the cloud. But again, in order to leverage those and stay compatible, we need to make sure that Dynamics GP is also at a good current version. And as those products move forward, especially those cloud-based ones, such as Batchmaster, we need to make sure that they are able to continue providing service to your version of Dynamics, which means you probably have to move forward with an upgrade. My last little box here is the ease of process. What I mean by that, and I just mentioned it a few minutes earlier briefly, is if you let your whole environment kind of get behind, not just Dynamics GP, when it comes time to do an upgrade, it becomes a very big lift because you have to take all components that are connecting to all of your applications and upgrade them all at the same time, which makes it difficult from a logistical standpoint. And also, it can make it difficult if you are trying to troubleshoot or iron out issues to know where those issues actually lie when you've made so many changes at once. The example I give here is a bit exaggerated because everything's kind of old, but I list, Windows Server 2012 and CRM 2013 and SharePoint 2013 and SQL Server 2012, and then maybe a couple of ISVs. I didn't necessarily list the version of GP involved in a scenario like this, but for example, if Dynamics GP was in the mix and you had an integration between all these products and you had a requirement to move SharePoint, for example, to the latest version, whether it's 2019, the problem you have is if you move SharePoint to 2019, everything integrating to that breaks, which is why you have to, and of course the version of SQL would have to change, which is why you have to airlift everything and upgrade everything all at once. So better to, if you have an environment with multiple applications, be in a situation where you can upgrade each piece in a stair-stepped fashion over time, and that way it's much smoother to do the upgrade. So, and then support from a standpoint of operating systems. Right now, Dynamics GP 18.x supports Windows 11. Other versions may not, depending on how far back you go, will not support that operating system for your users. So we have to be cognizant of that as well. If your organization has decided that they want to roll out Windows 11, obviously then that comes into play. We have to be conscious of Dynamics GP as well. You may actually decide just to roll out remote desktop services instead. Again, then you have to be cognizant of which version of that you can roll out based on the version of Dynamics GP. And the same goes for your infrastructure. You may decide that in your organization you want to start rolling out Windows Server 2019, and that impacts the version of SQL that you can have, which in turn impacts the version of Dynamics GP that you have. So that's why we should try and keep Dynamics GP as current as we possibly can to benefit everybody. That's really all I have. Any questions?
If you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat.
Yeah. Hey, good job, Ian. I don't see any questions yet. Hey, Ian, do you want to talk about like Turnkey's process for doing a Dynamics GP upgrade for clients or prospects?
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. The way that we are handling upgrades at Turnkey right now, which actually provides a great benefit to the client, and I sort of lead back to an example here that I'm just running into recently. I have a client that's got a situation, not a good situation, unfortunately, and ran into an issue with understanding of their environment and documentation. So one of the things that we're doing at Turnkey is what we're calling an assessment and a review. And what that involves is generally I connect with your IT and into your environment, and I take a very detailed, granular look at everything in and around Dynamics GP. So that includes the infrastructure, any communications, any software, any ISVs, any customizations. I take a deep look into SQL to review tables, stored procedures, actual data itself, security. And then what we do is we have a document that's put together which lists your entire environment, again, in very granular detail, so that you're aware of exactly what you have and what all the touch points are, whether it's SSRS or integrations, this scribe, whatever you have going on, it's all listed, and that way we can then put together a plan, again in great detail, for moving forward and upgrading or making changes to your environment. That is beneficial not only to us, because if we're going to do an upgrade, we have a full understanding of our environment, but it also is massively beneficial to you also, because it gives you a true picture of what you have deployed at that moment in time. And it's my experience over the years that a lot of times, because software is installed and pieces are plugged into it, and changes happen, migrations happen, and people come and go, that eventually on either side of the fence, there's some fog. People don't really know what they actually have. So putting an assessment together, giving you a complete 360 view is hugely important. So once we've got that assessment, from when I've done it, we take a meeting with the client, and we go through it line by line and discuss what we found, and that gives you the opportunity to say, oh well, we also have this, or we have that, or we would like to make a change here or a change there, and we can add that into the documentation and give us some planning for moving forward in the future.
Hey, Ian,
Yeah,
not to cut you off, but
that's okay.
Melinda wants to know if there's any costs associated with the updates, the GP updates or ISV updates, or with the assessment.
Michael, wouldn't you be better apt to answer that?
Oh, I can answer that. Everything needs to depend. Everything depends, Melinda. I mean, you can reach out to us offline, and I can go in more detail on that. And depending on your environment, depending on the updates, what version you're on, how many service packs you're behind, everything varies. But we typically do a lot of our Dynamics GP upgrades. If it's less than 8 hours, it's T&M work. If it's more, after doing a GP assessment, we put together a statement of work, and you'll be broken down, and you'll know exactly how many hours it would take for a professional consultant to do your upgrades or your updates, okay? But if you want more information, Melinda, feel free to reach out to me or Ian directly. Did I miss anything, Ian?
Nope. I don't think so.
Any other questions for Ian today?
All right. And on that note, I believe we are going to break for lunch. We're scheduled to restart with session 4 at 1:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Look forward to seeing everybody on here again.
At 1:30 today?
1:30 today. You got it.
Thank you.
All right. See you then, everybody.